To some people, 2016 through 2018 was the golden era of Roblox, with people saying the game was at its all-time peak, with the community and the games created making it perfect. With how great it was, and the classic event that took place this year, it had me thinking about how the games of that era are doing current day, and if people still enjoy them. Every game here was very popular for its time, so I'll make sure to say how many players it's at so you can see for yourself if it's suffering or doing just fine. Before we get into the video, I'm trying to get to 1k subscribers before the end of the year, so if you would consider subscribing and liking the video, it would help a lot. With that said, let's get into it. The first game I have is Roblox Deathrun. If you don't know what Deathrun is, how the game works is that one player will set off the traps to kill the other team, which is the runners, who have to complete an obstacle course. While this game has 363 million visits and 2.4 million favorites, it sadly has not stood the test of time. And at the time of writing, it only has 34 players and was updated as recently as 2 weeks ago. I believe that this game had its peak, but it's time to fade away into obscurity for now. And I don't think there's much changing that, and this game is probably officially dead. Hide and Seek Extreme is next, in a way bigger game than Deathrun. With it having 2.9 billion visits and 6 million favorites, this game is just as you imagine, with it just being hide and seek, and there's not much really to explain. Like Deathrun, this game also updated as recently as 3 weeks ago, but that's where their similarities end. Shockingly to me, this game is as live as ever, with it having 3,000 players on it currently, which is crazy, and leads me to believe that it won't really ever go away, and it's probably going to be the best hide and seek game for all of Roblox time. Pokemon Brick Bronze was Roblox's own take on Pokemon, and was one of the biggest games for its time. Sadly, this game was copyright struck and taken down in 2018. So I fear the legacy of it is gone. The creators of this game went on to create Lumion Legacy, which is another Pokemon-like game, but without the actual Pokemon characters inside of it. I know when it was discontinued it had lots of outrage and sadness, but now it's just a distant memory of a loved Roblox game. Epic Minigames, like its name, is just a game where you play through random minigames. It's still getting updated pretty frequently, like 2 days ago, but although it's getting good amount of updates, the player count has dropped a lot. With the game having 2.1 billion views, it only has around 900 players on it right now. So it's not the worst, but it's lost a lot of its previous players. I would say though, it's still great, and I'm glad the developers are giving it love after almost 10 years of being out. Some new minigames have of course been added over time, but the original feeling of the game is still there. MeepCity at a time was the biggest Roblox game on the whole platform. It was a roleplay game with lots of customizable options, with it gaining 16 billion visits, which is by far the most we have discussed. While I'm not sure how it was when it first came out since I didn't really play it, it still gets updates like a week ago. And while nowhere close to the top like it used to be, it still has 2,000 players, which is decent for coming out 8 years ago. Be Crushed by a Speeding Wall is probably the weirdest game here and has 100% fallen off. This game has 200 players on it and is still updated occasionally, and while it's not the worst, the game is kind of boring. All you do in this game is just try to walk forward without getting hit by a wall and dying. I'm personally not too surprised it's gone since there really isn't much to do. If you want to play it, it feels the same about how it did in 2016, and you can log in and see while there's been updates, nothing's really changed. Jailbreak is one of the original Roblox games I remember playing, and that's for a good reason. It has 7.1 billion visits and 8,000 players on it due to how iconic and updated it is. Compared to the other games on this list, this game has changed a lot and isn't even close to how it once was. So much content has been added, with this year having 24 updates in 2024 alone. The current season is based around the 80s, but this game has kept the players and updates up consistently. Robloxian High School is another game with over 1 billion visits, but I fear it's nowhere close to where it once was. In this game you play as a student in high school, but not much has been changed compared to when it first came out. The creator has also started to neglect the game since the last update was 4 months ago, and I'm not sure if there will be another. Even through all this, the game has managed to reach 200 players on it currently, which is pretty good for almost being left alone for half a year. Royale High is one of those Roblox games that has been on the front page for as long as I can remember. This is something that has not changed recently and is still popular as always. With 10 billion visits, Royale High is currently standing at 5k active players and getting major gameplay updates every so often. This game has even released its own toy sets in real life, which I know it means it's doing great, and I know it will probably continue to. Bear is probably one of my favorite games on this list. Sadly, the passage of time was not kind to it and it's faded away mostly. I go more into detail about why in this video if you're curious to exactly see what happened, but currently only 100 players on it and it's kinda sad to me. The game is still adding skins, but the feeling it once had to play is kind of gone. Natural Disaster Survival is a game I also love and will probably never go away since it's so iconic. Nothing too major has happened in this game, but it still has a good 3k players on it. The only real difference I would say is that recently a disaster of an avalanche was added, which was a crazy thing to actually see a change in gameplay. But besides that, it's basically the same game as always. Work at a pizza place was always a game that was kind of boring to me, but apparently not to many other people. The reason I say that is because it currently has 5k players and is getting updated pretty frequently. Even though it's getting these updates, I'm not really sure what is changing since it still feels like the same pizza making game it's always been. The normal elevator is probably one of the worst performing games on this list, while others have faded into irrelevancy due to the lack of updates or just a random other factor. Normal elevator just lost its player base. Currently this game has 60 players, which isn't too bad, but considering it has 500 million visits, that's pretty terrible. This game is also being updated with as recently as 2 days ago, with it being a Halloween update, so it's safe to say this game is pretty much gone in the current day. The last game on this list is the biggest yet, and it amazes me with how well it's doing. This game, of course, is Murder Mystery 2. With it having 18 billion visits, which is the most here, and 50k active players, it's crazy to me how well it's doing. It's also getting pretty big updates with new maps, skins, and modes, which of course helps keep its players. I personally never think it'll be a forgotten game and will always be one of the top ones as long as the creator doesn't give up with it and keeps updating. With all those games listed, I hope you're able to see which ones succeeded and which are becoming gone. I personally was very curious in how they're doing and are surprised some are doing pretty well. While all these games are at the top of the world at a time, it just goes to show fame isn't forever. I know I didn't get all the games during this era, so if you want me to do a part 2 with certain games, let me know in the comments. That's all I gotta say, so bye!